Now we turn to a very important story and a new exclusive series, Justice for All, where NBC Nightly news anchor Lester Holt explores some of the most important issues facing criminal justice reform, including stories of the wrongfully accused, exploring how mass incarceration works in America today, and justice writ large. Lester went and embedded in the largest maximum security prison in the U.S., spending 2 nights in a cell at the Angola Louisiana State Penitentiary.
Angola, or the Louisiana State Penitentiary, is a former slave plantation. I spent 3 days here. On the inside, my access was virtually unrestricted, and at times I was not in the immediate sight of officers.
Very few of the roughly 6,000 inmates here live behind bars as we traditionally think of prisons. In fact, most of them, about 80%, live in open dorms like this, bunk beds, like you would see in a barracks.
We're going to go down a tier here.
But for security reasons, I won't be staying in a dorm. Instead, I'm brought to this cell block, reserved for high-risk offenders. In my case, a high-profile guest.
Cell 11, go ahead in, please. Go ahead and close.
As journalists, we know that, to get to the heart of something, you have to get inside it. The closer you are to something, the more is revealed to you.
And we are thrilled to be joined right now by Lester Holt, anchor of NBC Nightly News. Thanks so much for making time for us.
Sure, Ari, happy to be here.
What was important to you about reporting the story this way, and what did you learn on the inside?
Well, it's a story that's typically told from the outside in, and we simply reversed it. I wanted to tell it from the inside out and have intimate conversations with these guys, and to do that, we used techniques like no artificial lighting, and the cameras were kept quite far back. But we wanted to understand this issue of mass incarceration and how different states and different prisons are trying to make it better. Here they've got, some programs they have added, and they're trying to give reason for hope in a place where there's not a lot of it. A lot of these guys are there on life sentences without the possibility of parole.
One of the things that I think you and I know from interviewing people is no matter how hard you listen, an interview is an artificially constructed set of time. You spent more time there. Did you pick up anything in the mood, in the environment, in the hopelessness that some people feel in this type of system? Yeah,
I think I went in with a sense that this would be filled with bitter people who, their lives have hit a dead end because of choices they made. What I found, though, was a lot of thoughtful individuals. Now, you've been in a lot of prisons and talked to a lot of inmates. You know that sometimes they'll tell you what they think you want to hear or what may be to their advantage. And so there were moments I simply didn't know if I was being conned. But I spoke to enough of these guys to get this sense of they're looking for some form of redemption. Many of them, I said, do you deserve parole? They said, I don't deserve parole. I mean, I would like to be released, but they are coming to acknowledge their crimes, what they've done to society. But they also look you in the eye and say, look, in some cases, I'm in prison for something I did when I was 16. I'm 45 now. I'm 50 right now. And that gets to that question, what do we do about, violent offenders, but those who may no longer pose a threat to society?
The other fault line here is race and the way the system has worked in racially disparate and sometimes racist ways over the decades, has, I think, gotten a little more attention lately. I wonder what you think in looking at that and the way that punitive justice is handed out.
You can't escape the legacy, and brighter minds have looked into this issue of the line from slavery in this country into how our criminal justice system has turned out. I will tell you anecdotally at Angola is a farm, and this is hard labor, and one of the jobs there is to go out in the fields and pick produce. I went out on a tractor with inmates, and we were picking carrots, and I looked around. I said to them, I said, everybody looks like us, meaning people of color. And we were being under the watchful eye of guards with guns on horsebacks. The imagery, certainly wasn't lost on me. And I talked to prison officials about that. And they make the argument that, look, these guys are getting paid, albeit pennies per hour, that the food is consumed at the prison, and that virtually any piece of farmland in Louisiana was at one time a plantation, as this was. But, I couldn't escape that stark imagery and the history we know of that part of the country.
That's very striking. The last thing I wanted to ask you about was in your work on this and in your writing about it, you touch on how in the role of a journalist, you've observed actual executions. That's not something most people see with their own eyes outside of law enforcement or people caught up in those situations. What did you learn from that? How do you take that to telling this story to Americans as we do debate how we do justice?
Well, that was back in the 90s. I was a witness, a media witness, which they had to an execution. It was a lethal injection. I always remember in this, kind of this chilly blockhouse. I call it a blockhouse. It was brick. The curtain opens up. There is the inmate all wired up and the warden, and he's got a headset on, and it's all very official. And I remember at this moment of wanting to stand up, I'm like, wait a second, what are we about to do here? I say that not as giving you my opinion one way or the other on death penalty, but it made me think about how we administer justice. And what do we get for it? Because, he was executed that day for, by the way, a horrible crime. Is the world any safer? What did we get for it as a society? And that's kind of started those thoughts, which I didn't really, play down on until later, now that it's a topic that people really seem ready to discuss, and it's got bipartisan support for the conversation. But it's certainly, you can't witness something like that and not have it shape, how you view the criminal justice system.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating way that you're approaching the story. So you're known to all of our viewers. Lester Holt, thanks for coming on The Beat and telling us about it.
You bet. Thanks anytime.
Of course. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.